Welcome to the world of probiotic foods. This is Cultured Food Life with your host, Donna Schwenk.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's podcast. And if you're new to the show, get ready because there are things that we could talk about on the show today that could change your life. You're going to learn some stuff that probably you never knew, and it's going to help you make friends with your body and those 100 trillion unseen helpers that you are probably mostly ignoring, that are mainly bacteria and yeast on your body that are helping you each and every day. And if you have care for these little critters, then they outnumber your cells 10 to 1, you are going to find out that you're much more powerful and wonderful than you know. And you may not know that everything you eat affects those around you on a daily basis in a very big way. Do you remember the cartoon, the little guy called Pigpen that was on the Peanuts little show? And this little kid, it was from Charles Schulz's Peanuts cartoon, if you ever watched any of those. And he walked around in a cloud of dirt, if you don't remember the show or haven't seen it, but most everybody knows what I'm talking about. But he was the little guy that had dirt all around him wherever he went. Well, the human body does spew a cloud like that, but instead of dirt, it contains millions and billions of microorganisms. And your friends, you are influencing your friends by changing every room you walk into with this little cloud that you take with you. And it happens within minutes. And so everywhere you go, you're taking this cloud, just like Pigpen did, only his was dirt, but yours are bacteria. And researchers from the Home Microbiome Project took 7 families, 18 people, 3 dogs, and 1 cat. And they moved them into homes across the United States. And quite rapidly, the homes were changed to the bacteria that those people brought with them, just by their very presence. These people were ethnically diverse, and not all of them were genetically related. And they had a cloud of bacteria that went with them and followed them into this new home. And in this study, when someone left the house for a few days, the researchers could discern the person's absence in the microbiome or aura of the absence or the absence of that. And they could actually tell when people were coming and going in and out of the house because certain bacteria were present when some people were there and some were not when they were not there. It was really interesting. I loved this part where they found this pathogen called Enterobacter, and that was transferred to the kitchen counter and then picked up by one of the other people's hands. And this is a pathogenic bacteria, but no one got sick because they had enough good bacteria in their bodies to keep them well. You know, I think it was the summer of 2013, and I remember this. A friend came into my kitchen, and this was about a couple years after I had first started fermenting. And she asked me what was on my counters. And I excitedly told her about these jars and my cultures that I love so much. And I remember watching her face change expressions. And she said to me, "These jars have been brewing on your counter for days?" And as she said that, I got that sick feeling in my stomach that she was going to say something I didn't like. And I wanted to run from the room because I thought, uh-oh, here it comes. But instead, I stood there and I took it. And she was very disapproving of me. And she tried to be nice. And basically, she was telling me that I was loony to have food sitting on my counter that she thought were spoiling. But I tried to explain to her that there were billions upon billions of probiotics, and they weren't spoiling, they were culturing. But it was such a foreign concept to her, she could only understand what she had learned, and that was to leave food out allowed it to spoil. She didn't know that all of these jars were infused with billions of good bacteria that kept the food safe and kept out pathogens, because the more good bacteria they had and the more they fermented, the stronger they got. And it's one of the safest ways to preserve food. But this lady had already made up her mind, and she was not going to listen to me, no matter what I said to her, because she thought I was just crazy. My family kind of believed after they saw it change them one by one. In the beginning, my family thought I was a little crazy for doing this. And little did they know that the more good bacteria I ate, and the more I fermented it in my house, the more I was infusing them in these microbes every day. And especially my reluctant family members, like my husband. But unbeknownst to him, he was getting my good bacteria every day without drinking a sip of kefir or eating cultured foods. He was getting 80 million microbes every time he kissed me after I had kefir. And I made sure he did, by the way, just so you know. And he was also getting my bacteria from things like sharing toothpaste and drinking my drinks or sharing food or holding hands or simply by living with me. He was getting it whether he liked it or not. He just didn't know it. And that's what happens when you share your life with someone. Your bacteria starts to merge and become very similar. And the more I ate cultured foods, the more I changed my home. And simply by that cloud of bacteria that followed me everywhere I went. And in the early days, perhaps I had more strains of good bacteria than my husband from cultured foods. So then I overpowered him without him knowing it. And this is one of the reasons he probably now eats cultured foods on a regular basis. It's, kind of my theory, but it actually is a little bit of science to it, because the more you eat these foods, the more you infuse your home with it in a very powerful way. So everywhere you go, you're bringing that with you. And in a way, you're making the world a better place if you're healthy. And we don't think about it like that very often. But whenever you exude health and wellness, your microbes that are 100 trillion go with you and affect people around you. Now, whether they stick to those people or those other people's bacteria is so diverse from yours and doesn't merge, that's up to them. But you can know that when you're eating these foods, you're actually doing good things, not only for yourself and your own body, but for those around you. This was interesting. I read this article. It was about a team of Dutch researchers. They shared their finding about kissing in the Journal of Microbiome. 42 volunteers allowed the researchers to wipe their tongues with a cotton swab and gather saliva several times a day. They asked them all kinds of questions about their kissing habits, and they found that the bacteria on the tongue of each member of the kissing couple was very, very similar to their partners. And it was nothing like the bacteria on a stranger's tongue. And the more they kissed, the more similar it became. So they also did another test, and they gave each participant a probiotic yogurt drink with a marker bacteria so they would know, which bacteria were in there. So the researchers first swabbed their tongues and then asked them to kiss their partner. And what they found was a single kiss that lasted 10 seconds can deposit 80 million of these special marker bacteria from one tongue to another. I think that's awesome. I love that. One tongue to another, they were getting each other's bacteria. And I think that's awesome. Just think of all the people I could help if kissing them was considered an acceptable way of greeting people here. I think it is in some countries, but I would shock everybody if I did that. But I could spread good bacteria everywhere if I could do that. It would be awesome. So, each of us carries around millions of microorganisms, billions, trillions, including bacteria, fungi, and even viruses on the inner and outer surface of our body. Most of them are not dangerous. In fact, growing evidence indicates that they help us in a lot of ways. Did you know, for instance, bacteria even helps you breathe. If we didn't have it, we couldn't breathe. And scientists call this collection of organisms our microbiome. And there's been a lot of work that's ongoing, and it is just growing like gangbusters. I am really excited about what's happening with this. They're starting to test people's microbiome and to help with things like weight loss, with autism, with arthritis, all kinds of metabolic disorders where people are struggling, because depending on the type of microbiome you have will determine whether you use calories in certain ways. Like some people's bacteria will use calories from food and get more calories from food than other people, which is why some people are thin and some people are not. But it's such a diverse and such a complicated thing that they're doing so much research on it. And now they've got a lot of places now where they're testing it and finding out which foods work well with your body and your microbiome. And it's really ongoing. We're at the head front right now of just learning about this. It's just now starting to really turn the corner and people are waking up to it. It's really fun to see the work that I'm seeing, because I see it all the time. It comes up and I look for it too in my feed and in different places. I'm researching all the time. But a lot of the recent research on the human microbiome has revealed that we're kind of like spilling our microbial companions all over our houses, all over our office, all over the people we're around, and our animals are doing the same. So we do that by touching and by sharing objects, dishes, computers, toys, beds, toothbrushes or hairbrushes, so much more. And there was a really kind of interesting study that was done that I thought was really interesting. Researchers asked 11 healthy volunteers, and they were in their 20s and 30s, to sit quietly in a special closed booth for 4 hours while the researchers analyzed the air. And the results really surprised them. By analyzing DNA from bacteria in the air, the researchers could clearly detect plumes containing thousands of different types of bacteria. They could discern all sorts of things from each plume, such as whether the person in the booth was a man or a woman. And more importantly, they found that each person was unique in two ways. Each of us gives off different amounts of bacteria into the air around us. And they think that's probably because of factors such as how much we scratch ourselves, how much we fidget. But beyond that, we each give off slightly different cocktails of these little bacteria. And there are just really subtle differences. And now they're using these microbes to be able to identify criminal investigations. They can even tell if the person has been in the room in the last few hours. So their forensic is really using this kind of research to help get clues to all kinds of things, from murders and, crimes that have been committed. And it's really, really intense and quite impressive. And researchers now know that if you live with people, and even if you just work with people, your microbiome communities come to resemble each other's over time. In the past, we used to think this was due to touch. And it may be that you're just releasing microbes into the air and some of those microbes are colonizing with the people with you. And it could be other things too. They're going into much more depth now so they can understand exactly how this happens and what it happens. But I have to tell you that, bacteria, fungi, viruses, they're everywhere on this planet. And we mostly either ignore them or kill them because we don't understand them. And yet they outnumber us in vast numbers, and they're intelligent. I was watching a video the other day as to how a bacteria becomes antibiotic resistant, and it was absolutely incredible. It slowly over time adapts and overcomes the antibiotic to become stronger and stronger and stronger because, this living organism is been around before we were. And so it's learned to survive. And so I have to tell you, how you eat, how you feed your microbes impacts everything. And what does your cloud of bacteria say about you? I'm trying with all my heart to change the world with my cloud of bacteria. But everywhere I go, people are so sick, and that really breaks my heart. And I can't change everybody, but hopefully the people that I do come in contact with will be infused with my bacteria and maybe some of the things that I have learned. I do a lot more hugging than I used to do, to be honest. I remember when I first found these foods, I felt such joy to be well and to be healthy again that I wanted to hug everybody. And people who were holding the door for me, people who sacked my groceries, I just felt an unbelievable sense of wellness and joy. And all I wanted to do was to give that to other people. And maybe, without knowing it, I was giving them my bacteria. I can't spread my microbes across the radio waves, or, I would be cool though if I could, right? But I can share with you what it has made me well. And I hope you can feel my passion and love for these invisible organisms that made their presence known to me to help me live an outstanding life on planet Earth. I never in a million years thought that microbes would be the answer to my prayers, but they were, and they made me well. And the lady who stood in my kitchen and told me that I was crazy for doing this could have never convinced me otherwise, because when something makes you well, you pay attention. And my own life experience taught me. I didn't need anybody to tell me. I was experiencing it through my own journey on this life, and it has been tremendous. And it's really interesting because back then there wasn't very much research, and now the research is just flying in every day about things that I suspected and knew back then, but didn't have any research to, point it out. So now I have research all over my website and articles, because it's so exciting to me to see all of the research come in and confirm things that I have known for a long time without really knowing why or how it worked. But it did work. And it's an amazing thing. One of the best ways to change your microbiome is to eat prebiotic foods. And prebiotics are different than probiotics. They're things like fruits and vegetables, and there's certain ones that are more powerful than other. But they have fiber in them, and that fiber feeds your microbes. You can't really do anything with it. It doesn't really give you any calories, but the fiber does feed your microbiome. And when that grows and multiplies, the good bacteria dominate, and then they can start to kill off the pathogens. And they start to kill off harmful things in your body that don't belong there because they overpower them like an army. And the more you do that, the stronger you get, and the less disease can afflict you because your microbiome has grown in a powerful way that is good. And that's why I think people, say, eat your vegetables. Well, I honestly think it's the vegetables are feeding the microbiome. They're just making us healthy. I see this again and again. And cultured foods is which I teach people how to make, which is things like kefir, kombucha, cultured vegetables, water kefirs, all these different types of foods. They all have powerful probiotics within them. And many of them aren't naturally in our own bodies, but they enhance us. And they have done that for me. They have made such a difference. Many of them are what they call transient bacteria, so they don't last in the body very long. They last a couple of days. So you have to have them on a regular basis. But it was interesting to me as a young woman, and this was 17 years ago when I was sick and had these problems with high blood pressure and diabetes and all these things. When I had these foods that would lower my blood pressure and it would lower my blood sugars into the normal ranges. And when I didn't have them, they would start to go up again. So they were assisting me, each one of them. And I have a lot of information on my website about this. You can go to culturedfoodlife.com and search my health and wellness articles. But for instance, high blood pressure, it was working on an enzyme in my gut that was naturally lowering my blood pressure. It does that in 1 out of 3 people. And for blood sugar, it was helping, it was changing my microbiome, because I had a lot of bacteria that were pathogenic when I had diabetes that went away when I started eating these foods. And consequently, my blood sugars got better and my diabetes went away, and I changed what I was eating and I changed my lifestyle, and it was profound. And it wasn't even that hard. And it's exciting to me that, I see this across the board with so many different ailments now. How, changing your gut and the microbes that reside within can change so many things. And the research is coming forth. It is pretty strong. I mean, they had one last week on Alzheimer's. I think it was it Alzheimer's or not? I think it was. And it was coming forth that, it's interesting what happens. They have different gut flora. People who have, anxiety and different problems with depression usually have a mixed up gut. And I've done a lot of podcasts on that too, if you want to check out some of my other podcasts. And I've seen that personally myself, when I get off balance and it's not just what you eat, it's the stresses that you have in your life, the thoughts you think, the things that you do and the belief systems that you have. It's profound how all of this connects the mind-body connection together in a very, very powerful way. And I just want to share with you the things that have made me, well. And I hope that you can, find the answers for you and your life. And I want you to be well. Please don't spend your life not feeling well. It's so fun when you feel well. There's so much that you can do. I never wanted to be an author or do podcasts. Goodness, I was never even on the radar screen. But when I started to feel well, it opened up a world to me that I didn't even know existed, because I had the energy and I started to have passion and love for life that I had not known before. And I've created so many things to help you. I've got books and videos and recipes, and I've got a membership site. I've got podcasts. I've redesigned my website and put these special boxes in so it makes it easier for you to read. And I'm trying to put podcasts with all my articles, so if people don't want to read them, they can listen. I'm doing everything. Guys, I'm doing everything I can. I don't know what else to do I just keep thinking of more ways to help you, because I have a really grateful heart. I feel very grateful for what I get to do for a living to help other people. I love the emails you guys send me, and we get so many emails. And it is so rewarding to see people get well, and not to make, I love it that I am not the hero in this, you are, because when they do it and they figure out, they have a tool that serves them the rest of their life. And so I am just the messenger. I'm just telling you what you can do. You've got to do the work in order to do that. And whatever it is, there's a lot of different health protocols out there, but most health and wellness people were sick at one time, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. And that's certainly why I'm doing what I'm doing. So you can change the world that you live in right now just by changing a few things that maybe you eat and do. And most importantly, you will feel so much better, and you'll want to hug and love more, and life will feel different to you. So if I could hug you, I would. So I hope you can feel my hug. I hope you have a great week. And we will see you next Tuesday.